For most of my 20s, I was broke. Not the kind of broke where you skip Starbucks. No, sir. It's the kind where your card declines for gas, and where intermittent pockets of shame make you not want to look at people in the eye. That kind of broke. By 30, I owed over $50,000 in credit cards, personal loans, and a car I could barely afford. I know this number may seem like a lot for some, while little to others. I was making $15 an hour, living paycheck to paycheck, pretending everything was fine. Until one day, it wasn't. That was the moment I finally faced the truth. I wasn't just struggling. I was stuck, drowning in minimum payments, late fees, and stress. And the worst part? It wasn't because of some emergency or bad luck. The truth is, I did this to myself. I was reckless. I spent to feel successful, borrowed to look like I had more than I did, and ignored every warning sign along the way. But that was also the beginning of something else. The moment I decided to change everything. This is the story of how I went from debt, doubt, and constant anxiety to finally taking control, paying it all off, and rebuilding my life. One paycheck at a time. It all came crashing down when my wife started asking questions I couldn't keep dodging. Bills were showing up more often than paychecks, and one night she looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "I'm worried. We have a baby coming. How are we going to do this?" I didn't have an answer. That was the moment everything inside me broke. Because now, my choices didn't just affect me. They affected her. And our child. That's when it hit me. So that night, after she went to bed, I opened my laptop and pulled every statement I could find. Credit cards, loans, car payments. The total came out to $52,416. I stared at that number for almost an hour. Then I wrote it down on paper, circled it, and said out loud, "This ends with me." I know that sounds silly, but the mind is a powerful thing. I had to find a way to psych myself into pivoting out of a decade of bad habits. The first step was facing reality. I stopped avoiding the mail. I stopped pretending things weren't that bad. And I made a promise to myself. I'd track every single dollar that came in and went out. Every single dollar. I started using the Debt Snowball method. I lined up every debt from smallest to largest. I paid the minimums on all of them except the smallest one. Every extra dollar went there until it was gone. Then I rolled that payment into the next debt and the next. And at $15 an hour, I had nothing left for myself at the end of the month. For a long time. Even so, the momentum felt incredible. Even my wife started to notice the change. We were communicating again, planning instead of panicking. At some point, the process became fun. It felt like a game where the massive debt was the final boss and our attacks were finally working. Realistically, $15 an hour was too low to make the strides I wanted, so I hustled more. At work, I volunteered for overtime whenever I could. On weekends, I started driving for delivery apps, not every night, just enough to bring in an extra 100 or two. I sold things I didn't need, old sneakers, electronics, stuff that had value but no purpose. That extra money didn't go to fun. It went straight to freedom. Every time I made a payment, I wrote it down on a whiteboard in the kitchen. Watching those balances shrink gave me hope. It made every sacrifice feel worth it. We started substituting the things that used to drain our money and turn them into small challenges. Again, almost like a game. Instead of eating out several times a week, we decided to stock up on groceries and plan out our meals in advance. Each Sunday, we'd write down a simple menu for the week. One new recipe each day. On special nights, we'd turn our little apartment into a restaurant. We'd light candles, play soft music, and cook together. Those nights ended up feeling more intimate and memorable than any dinner we'd paid for before. We also canceled our gym memberships and made the park our new fitness center. We'd jog, do push-ups on the benches, and time each other's laps. It cost nothing, but it brought us closer together. Little by little, saving money stopped feeling like deprivation. It started feeling like a game, a challenge we were winning together. Every dollar we didn't spend became another step toward freedom. Back then, it felt like I was always digging, but in the wrong direction. Every time I swiped a card, took out another loan, or told myself I'll worry about it later, I was standing in a hole, shovel in hand, tossing dirt over my shoulders, without realizing I was burying myself deeper. I thought I was building something, an image, a lifestyle, a version of success that people would respect. But I wasn't building, I was digging. And the deeper I went, the harder it became to see a way out. At some point, I realized the hole wasn't just financial, it was mental. Debt had become this quiet, invisible weight that followed me everywhere. It didn't matter if I was at work, at home, or out with friends. I always felt that pressure sitting on my chest, reminding me that I owed, that I had made mistake after mistake. But here's what changed. Once I stopped digging deeper, I realized that the same energy I had used to bury myself could be used to climb out, if I just started digging in the right direction. After that, I started digging for something new. Every smart choice, every dollar saved, every payment made, it was like placing a brick where that hole used to be. And little by little, I began to build. For the first time, the work felt meaningful, because I wasn't digging a hole anymore. I was laying a foundation for stability, for peace, for wealth that would last. The hole that once represented my mistakes became the base where I built my freedom. The day I completely paid off one of my main credit cards, I took a red Sharpie and wrote "Chase card fully paid off" before my wife came home from work. When she saw that, she became emotional, and so did I. There were setbacks, of course, unexpected expenses, moments of frustration, but each time I reminded myself why I started: my wife, our baby, our future. After 9 months, we paid off our first $15,000. By the time our son was born, we had cleared nearly half, and by the time he turned 1, the last payment was gone. No more calls, no more minimums, no more pretending. I remember sitting in the car after that final payment, staring at the confirmation screen. I didn't cheer, I didn't post about it. I just sat there in silence, smiling, crying, relieved. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't owe anyone anything. And when I got home that night, I held my son and whispered, "You'll never see me live like that again." Getting out of debt didn't just change my finances, it changed me. It taught me patience, discipline, and humility. It taught me that real freedom doesn't come from earning more, it comes from wanting less. If you're in the same place I was, scared, ashamed, overwhelmed, know this: you can turn it around. One decision, one payment, 1 month at a time. And one day, you'll look back and realize you didn't just get out of debt, you outgrew it. That was the end of my debt story. But it was only the beginning of something bigger. Because once the debt was gone, a new question showed up. What do you do when you finally have money left at the end of the month? And how do you make sure you never fall back into that hole again? Next week, I'll share exactly what I did, and what I'm still doing, to stay debt-free. If you're serious about turning your story around too, hit subscribe and come back next week. That's where freedom really begins.